Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you enjoyed this table and chairs flip. It was my first time. It was really fun. Let me know what you think. So I got commissioned this table with 2 leaves and 6 chairs to redo for a coworker's friend. And I started by taking the chair cushions off, which they just had a screw going in each corner. So that's what I'm doing here. And then after that, I started with scuff sanding everything. So this table, I am painting a gray. So I'm scuff sanding just the apron right now with a 180 grit, and then I'm gonna scuff sand the chairs as well. Once that's done, I'm leave the top alone for right now, but once I'm done scuff sanding everything, I'll go back with some primer and prime it up, then paint it gray. And they liked the distressed look, so I'm gonna see if I can do the distressed look without any bleed through. And if not, then I'll just have to go solid, but we're gonna try, we'll see. But that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm just trying to get the previous shiny finish scuffed up so that my primer will stick to it. So it's not like full sanding where I'm getting the stain and everything off, but just making it, well, scuffed. Yeah, like it sounds, scuffed up, so that it'll stick, the primer will stick and not slide over it. So, yeah. So I'm pretty sure there is a tool out there to just get these staples right out. However, this was my first time reupholstering seat cushions, and so I've never needed one before, and I wasn't sure if I was going to do it again, so I just found this little tiny flathead screwdriver and was just prying them up one at a time. And this whole process for 6 cushions, it took 3 hours to get all of those staples out. But here I am just prying them up one at a time, and then I went back with some what are they, the pointy nose pliers, and pulled them out. I will say that although my hands were kind of raw by the end of it with the rubbing of that screwdriver and everything, this was an oddly therapeutic process. I actually really enjoyed taking them out. Probably next time I'd wear like a glove to protect my hand a little bit because it did get kind of raw. But it was a very satisfying thing getting all of those out so that it was like a nice clean surface to work with. I will say at some point during the process, I did try to like grab a piece of the fabric with some pliers and yank a lot of staples out because I've seen people do that too. However, it did not work for me, so we continued with the 1x1 method. So for this piece, the client actually picked this before ever bringing the project to me. It is silk paint by Dixie Belle in the color Wharf, a nice medium gray. And the silk paint is really cool because it has a built-in primer and a built-in top coat. So I did prime the apron because I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any of the previous stain bleed through. But coming up, I didn't actually prime the chairs, and it turned out really well. But this paint is really amazing. It has great coverage. It's very beautiful color. It does have that built-in top coat so that you don't have to apply one. I have a very difficult time painting top coats on just because they always end up streaky. So usually I try and spray, but we had some pretty bad weather the last few weeks, so that was just difficult to do. So it really helped having a all-in-one paint. I am also using a spindle brush by Zebra Brushes, and I love this paintbrush. It is amazing. It gets into details really well. It's specifically for spindles, so it was really good at painting like the legs and the chairs that I used it on. So I definitely would recommend this kind of brush for this type of project. I usually, for the most part, use 2-inch angled brushes for most things, but you know, it's project to project. You never know what you're really going to need. Look at this coverage. It definitely needs second coat, but like this stuff, because it has that built-in primer. Ooh, that is so nice. It's funny because like what comes to mind is it's like silk. and it's silk paint, so that makes sense. They named it very well. But wow, one coat, amazing. So this was that really bad weather that I was talking about. We had some hurricane weather, and our garage did flood just a little bit this time, only about like an inch or so into the lower part of the garage, which unfortunately where a lot of my furniture is. But we did our best to save what we could. But y'all, I could not take anything outside to spray. Back to furniture, I went to a fabric shop nearby and sent a bunch of different fabric options to the client and let her pick out which one she wanted the most. And I also gave price ranges just so that we were clear about what it would cost for the material. So this is my first time ever redoing seat cushions. I watched a YouTube video. I've seen several YouTube videos on how to do it, but I watched a YouTube video before I started just to make sure that I had everything right. So real quick to explain what I've been doing. I started with one staple in the center of each side, and then I worked from the center staple outward, one at a time, one direction, then center to the outside of the other direction. And I did front, then back, and now side to side. And then I leave the corners for last. And then when we get to the corners, I'll show you what I'm doing for that. So I will say that the cushions also took 3 hours to cover. So it was 6 hours total reupholstering these cushions. Granted, that could have been from lack of experience. It might be a much quicker process when you've done it many times. But it was definitely worth it. And like I said, a therapeutic process altogether. I did hammer the staples in a little further because I don't know if it was just the angle, the surface I was using, or my not pressing properly, but the staples weren't going all the way in. So I went back with the hammer just to make sure that there wasn't going to be any problems later with like potential tearing or scratching with the staple sticking out. Also, I'm making sure that I pull back tight around the edges, but I'm also trying to make sure that it's like even. So if you pull too tight in one area, you're going to cause like a lump in the cushion. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm pulling back as evenly as possible and holding that excess back. I keep filling for the front to see if I have any kind of ridges or anything forming. And then when I feel good about it, I just slick it back, and then I'm stapling right in the center of the board. Just to be on the safe side. I don't want to do it too close to the edge. And I just keep, as I go down the line, just readjust. Still trying to keep that flat, smooth line. And these are curved seats, so I'm just kind of going with the curve. Oh no, I got a jam, so I have to fix it. But I do stop just a little away from the corners so that I can get these down well. If I staple too close, then I have less ability to manipulate the fabric so that I don't cause a bunch of what are they called, pleats on the edges here. So yeah, now I'm gonna fix my stapler because we got a jam. And so before I could staple the corners, I trimmed back the excess, and I also cut back some of the corners as well so there's less fabric to deal with. I didn't explain that in the video, so I wanted to go ahead and say that real quick. But it makes it a lot easier to avoid pleating on the edges with less fabric to deal with. So originally I wasn't going to do anything with the top. The client wanted to keep the top and add just some clear coating. However, after the apron was painted, I sent a few pictures and we had discussed changing the color of the top to better match the chairs and their new cushions. So I went ahead and used a citrus stripper to work on getting that all off, the previous stain. And then I used mineral spirits to get more of it off, and then finally went in with the sander to get the last bit of residue and little streaks off before staining. So I did notice from the get-go that there was a lot of natural red-orange tint in the wood, and we were going to do a whitewash look first. So I took Dixie Belle's Pickling White as my white stain to kind of give a whitewash look on the table. We just thought it would go really well. I especially thought it was going to look great with the white from the cushions and just all complement each other. However, those red and orange tones were coming through so strongly, and it was also quite difficult to get that whitewash look to look nice and even. So here's a lot of trial and error. I go through again thinking after I've given it a day to dry, maybe if I do a heavy-handed coat, let it dry a little more, and then wipe it back, I can have a better, more uniform looking whitewash look without the red coming through. And here are the results of that coming up. Y'all, it did not work. Since this was a no-pain gel stain, it was just kind of sticky at first when I let it dry for a little bit. I couldn't wipe it back evenly, so I went back and just with, again, a heavy hand, wiped back as much as I could, because, I mean, you don't want a thick layer of stain sitting on top of the table anyways. That's not good for longevity. And so again, it was just streaky and it wasn't the look we were going for. So I sanded it all down again, and after I cleaned it off, I wiped with just like a warm, wet washcloth to get all of the dust and everything. And this is a picture of it with damp areas, and you can just see how orange the natural raw wood is. And so we went in with an Espresso, a very dark stain, to hopefully cover those red tones, because she wasn't a fan of the red tones coming through either. And it immediately looked so much better. It was hiding the orange for the most part. If the red did come through, it was more like a red wine look rather than blatant red popping through white. So definitely what we should have done first. But sometimes that's what it takes, trial and error and figuring out what works. Here's a picture of it in the dark so you can really see what it looks like. It was hard to get a good picture with the light shining on. It just changes the color, but it's very dark. And here is just a fun collage of all the stages that this table went through to get it from its original to the Espresso. I then went back and I coated everything with the Gator Hide Satin Clear Coat by Dixie Belle. It is a really tough clear coat. It's water repellent, water resistant. So it's really awesome to have on the top. And then I did that originally with the sponge, and then I went back with the sprayer and did some more for having a nice even finish. And so that's what this is right here. You can see my cost-efficient ways of using a trash bag to protect the sides that I didn't want clear coat on. But then this is me just picking the little bubbles out of the spray coat, because you don't want those bubbles to dry in it. I have to say, when all was said and done, I do think the Espresso looked really, really great for this tabletop. And here's a picture of it all put together. And there you have it. I did the whole table and 6 chairs redone, my first time doing a dining set, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. If you liked this or you enjoy furniture flips, please follow me, subscribe. It really helps so much. And then head over to Instagram and follow me up at Chalk It Up to Ashley. Thank you so much for watching.